right, this is a replay review for Frontline player, which is Consolidated. And let's get into it. All right, so you're gonna go double mech start. Into wind. Okay, so when you do this, you actually don't need two windmills. You just need one so that you don't e-stall. So you can actually go mechs, mechs, wind, mechs. By doing what you're doing here, you're missing this mechs for a while and you don't need the E right away. So you'll actually come out ahead if you go mechs, mechs, wind, mechs, and then more energy. Keep in mind, for a bot lab, you can get away with a lot less energy, but for a vehicle lab, you kind of want plus 70. So in this situation, it's probably better if you had dropped a solar and then dropped the vehicle lab. But you're going to swap back for a wind, which works because the wind is high. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Okay. Maybe, you know, you've already got 8 enemies on the other team. You don't need to make any on your own team. I think it's a pivotal lesson that we all learn in bar. All right, so you're going to start with con. I like that. And the wind kind of drops. You're going to drop back for a solar. I think all of this makes sense so far. Basic solars are always the best thing to build if you're e-stalling because they require no energy. Now you're out of metal though, so you're going to drop back for a windmill, which is awesome. Okay, and after your first con, you're going to drop a second con. So I really like early radar, 100%, but keep in mind that radars are super expensive. So a lot of times it's better if you don't build them right away, but I also don't hate this. I think it's always great to have early radar. So maybe delay it a little bit more, but not a bad choice actually. All right, first con is boosting, perfect. And then your commander is going to start heading to the front, which I think is great. You want to be a little bit concerned about raiders. So you're going to build blitz, which is awesome. Okay. So you've got your first blitz out. You have your rally point here. A lot of times I'll literally just right click on my commander so that my units will be as close to the front as possible. I know that your first 2 blitz are going to be defensive units, but for future units, it's better if you do that because then they're already heading to the front line where they can be active and do stuff. So you've got this radar and you see these 2 dots here. And you need you really need to react to these, right? You've got the blitz that can stop these. That's super concerning that you aren't reacting to them, right? The reason you build radar is so that this doesn't happen, so your blitz can run these down. So it looks like you stop the one and then, oh, okay, so you go here and then you need to chase him down. Okay, good. As long as you chase him down, he doesn't get in the back line, I think everything's fine. Early nano, it might be better to get one more con, but I also don't hate the early nano. It's nice. Oh no. Oh wait, why'd you stop chasing, dude? Did you need? So you don't need this blitz on front. I totally would have brought it up here and done this because this grunt is gonna, oh no. Well, this is kind of on your air. All right, well, so you have an arm air player who doesn't have Shuris, but if the blitz had come up here, you would have saved 2 mexes and 9 wind. That's basically this guy's entire economy that just got shredded. So in the future, definitely try to help and do that. All right, so you're on the front. We see some rovers and you've got an LLT, which is awesome. And you're going to come up and take the 3 mechs, which I think is the great call. Oh no. So I would always try to take these mexes before you start building other things, because even if they die, they pay for themselves so quickly, right? A T1 mex is 50 metal to build. So on something like this, it pays for itself incredibly fast, right? Like less than 20 seconds. So if you had built this, you would have been at 20 and you just be gaining that much more energy at a time where you're, that much more metal at a time where you're already M stalling. All right, so you have a con taking all the mexes behind you, which I think is awesome. You saw some rovers, you're putting down LLTs, and you have radar. I think that's all a really good idea. So what's your unit comp? Okay, so here's where the rally point to front would have been helpful. These whistlers would have already been at your comm. So you're going Whistler Janus, which is common. At the start, I think a lot of times, because you already have LLTs, it's better if you actually start with Janus, because if you have 2 Janus, you are a threat to comms, you're a threat to stouts, right? And your Janus can't get overwhelmed because you can just hide in your LLTs. So I would have done kind of the reverse of what you did here, where instead of dropping a lot of whistlers, I think a lot of times it's better to start early Janus, but I mean, that can vary game by game as well. Okay, so you still haven't taken this Mex. No. I mean, that Mex is so critical, right? That's one of the most valuable Mexes in the game. There's only a few of these, right? And they're all on the front line. So definitely take that as soon as you can. Okay. Sometimes, okay, here's this comm. Awesome. So you have all these, and if you had 2 Janus right here, he almost dies, because remember, it's 6 Janus shots to snipe a comm, sometimes 7 if there's like some weird splash. But if you had Janus here and he ran up to do that, you probably would have just sniped him. You want whistlers on the front always chipping, though. I think that's super important to do. Another thing here is this Mex isn't tapped. Sometimes it honestly makes sense to just tap your allies' mexes, and when they complain later, just gift it over to them. I mean, these are basically 2 metal a second, right? And it's 50 metal. If you hold it for 25 seconds, you just win, right? So we got that Mex. Okay, and you have whistlers, and you're against blitz, which is awesome because you totally outrange this. And there's what, only 1 RD. Perfect. Okay, so all of these you need to issue a fight command, and you need to start chipping, right? And you have Janus. Your Janus should be up here as well. The blitz can't dive you because they'll die to all of these. Your commander can be up here and he can repair these because there's only literally 1 RD. It's right here, right? So you can literally move, you could move all your whistlers up and set target and just kill it. But you back your whistlers off. So don't back your whistlers off here. Instead, you want to kind of do that instead. You want to be aggressive instead. Ooh, okay. So you're not e-stalling right now, but you need to be really careful when you're building A-solars, because A-solars require 5,000 energy if you're armed, which means if the wind drops and you don't have a lot of energy and you're still trying to build A-solars, you're going to stall super, super hard. So before you go on A-solars, I try to have a slightly better metal income or a slightly better energy income instead of doing what you're doing here. So you could literally build a whole block of wind back here, and then you could build A-solars later, right? Second thing, if you on grid, at least it's Shift X, this is the explosion radius of a converter. So the inner circle is if it dies, the outer circle is if you self-D it. But these things explode and do a lot of damage. If 1 tick comes in here and kills that, which it'll kill it very quickly, all those windmills die. So you never want to build converters next to other things. And like here is the same issue. Even though you built it in a 2x2 grid, if one of these converters die, this whole chunk dies. So it's better if you have like your wind maybe in rows of 2 here or spaced, and then you could just have a little section of converters so that if they die, they're not killing anything else with them, right? You want to try to separate those. And it's even more important when you get to tier 2, because tier 2 converters are really scary. So you're staying on the same unit mix, and let's see what happens. Okay, so not bad. You're starting to apply pressure now. One thing you can do is right here, you can issue a fight command. Oh, I don't know if I can do it with, no, I can't do it as a spec. You can issue a fight command and you can draw a line. Oh, I can. You can draw a line like that with a fight command, right? And if you draw a line like that with a fight command, all these, see how these guys aren't firing? These guys can then fire and shoot everything here, but then they're outside of the range of the LLTs. And then the other thing you do is after you issue a fight command like this, or you can even issue a move command like this, then issue a fight command backwards, then your missile trucks will come in and then they'll turn around, but then they'll keep firing at everything here. And that means that if the blitz come up and attack you, you can easily run away, right? Because one of the big problems with Janus and with Janus whistlers and other vehicles is they have to turn their tracks to go, but you can just preemptively turn that, right? And the other reason why you want to spread is he's got all this arty. So if you spread like this, the AoE doesn't hit multiple Janus or multiple whistlers, which is definitely a problem, or can be a problem. Okay, arty will never hit moving units if you just keep moving. So now if you can't draw a line here, you can literally kind of just run sort of like this. I guess draw it, this probably makes more sense. You can run like this, and you can shoot the whole time. And then if the blitz come, you can just bail out and kind of come back here, or sort of go like that. So HLTs are sort of area denial towers, and they're great versus some things. Specifically, they're good versus like missile trucks, but they're not good versus arty because they just get outranged. So here is not a great situation where you'd want to build an HLT. That metal is better spent into maybe artillery of your own or anything else. But I think the biggest issue right here is that you have these units and they're just sitting, right? Like, this is 2,500 metal worth of units, and you could have been aggressive with it, but you're kind of just like chilling and letting artillery chip at you. So instead, just try to do a more aggressive thing. And if they come like this, that's perfect, right? You have pop-ups, you have everything. He won't win this fight. Okay, this is amazing. So he just threw away most of his front line. That's a massive metal donation, and you can just run in and fight now. Let's look at your base. All right, T2 purchase was awesome. I would say because you're M-stalling on this, it's better if you stop production for a little bit while you get all your T2 mexes up, or a bunch of your T2 mexes up. And then also you can eat your basic solars, because that metal is better spent into A solars or wind, right? Because it's 155. And these are 370, and this only gives 20, right? So if you extrapolate it out, these are more efficient. Wind is more efficient, I would say, in general on glitters as arm, but it also is variable. Okay. So what are we? Okay. So you're building a gauntlet. Gauntlets are not great in the majority of situations. I don't hate it here because you want to try to chip at this and he has a lot of artillery. But think about what the goal of you building this gauntlet is, right? The goal of building this gauntlet is to kind of break this position or apply pressure and force him off of this. But a gauntlet's 1250 metal and your T1 lab is 740. Which means that if you wanted to build a T2 lab, you're almost there. You're just like 900 off. So I would say instead of doing this, you could literally just eat your T1 lab and go T2. And you could drop Mausers, and then your Mausers are mobile, and you can just shove through this entire position, right? And I think that's a much better plan. But alternatively, you drop this gauntlet. It looks like it's doing work, and you can always reclaim it later. The ferret for your unit comp isn't necessary at all. If you want a little extra, I think you could maybe throw a couple nettles, but keep in mind, you have 13 whistlers. Whistlers are anti-air. So it's very unlikely that you're going to run into a situation where your 13 whistlers are going to be overwhelmed by air and you need backup static AA. And this, I would just say that is better spent towards a T2 lab or anything else. Okay, he is upgrading mexes, but he doesn't have anyone assisting him. I think this is a great situation where you could even drop a couple more vehicle cons just to boost his build power, because he's going to up all these and you want him to upgrade them as soon as possible. So to do that, he needs more build power. And I would also just be building way more wind, because arm wind, especially on a map like this, is just super efficient. So you could have another con building wind here, maybe another con building wind here. You could have some in range of the nanos, some not. And I don't think you need the A solars. I don't really feel like it's efficient. Okay, perfect. So you drop your T2, which is awesome. When you're doing this, you're about to M stall, I think. Just eat your T1 lab and eat your basic solars. You don't need the 60 energy that you're going to get from these solars, but you do want the 450 metal or whatever it is, 465 metal from these basic solars, right? Okay. You have 3.3k metal in units, and what are they doing? There's all sorts of metal on the ground here that you can reclaim. And yes, there's a jammer here because you can see the dots disappearing, but Whistlers have awesome LOS. You should at least push up here, right? You could attack and just kind of spread out, and you should just see what's here. You never want to have idle units. You have your gauntlet to fall back to, and you have pop-ups and stuff to fall back to, but you need to scout this. You need to run up and say, okay, like what's here? So there's nothing here. There's a jammer, some Janus, and some Artie. You can literally beat all of this with Whistlers because you have a critical mass of Whistlers, and you can run in and then run back. The Artie, if you run like this, the Artie won't hit you, and you can kite the Janus, because if the Janus commit, you're just running back. So maybe some Artie hits behind you, like say here, but if you're moving, that Artie won't hit you and you can chip away. You always want to be trying to deal damage, right? You never want static units like this. Alternatively, if you do not want to push with these units, you already have awesome pork, right? You've got multiple Dragon's Claws, you've got an HLT, you've got LTs, you've got a Gauntlets. Just eat all these. You could literally just hit E and click on one and area drag, and you would just recycle all of those because they're not doing anything. All right. So perfect. Okay, so you have 2 cons assisting now, which I think is a great move. You go fusion first, which I don't hate, but you're you're M stalling and you need to eat. Always try to think about what's in your base that you don't need. Energy structures a tier above are always more efficient, right? So in this situation, you just eat your basic solars, eat your T1 lab. It's not giving you anything, right? And if you want to scout spam later, it's better to do it off a bot lab. But you get your first fusion, which is awesome. And what are we looking at now? Let me speed this up. Okay. Are you going to queue multiple fusions? So I don't hate the scaling idea at all. I scale a lot too, especially when I play front. But think about, you don't know what's here, and you could potentially just win the game and break this, right? Let me go back to your view just so we're there. But by not attacking, by being super passive here, you don't know what's here. So the Mausers, I think this is great. It's going to let you apply pressure, right? And you have 5. Okay, and you're building these. So think about the amount of resources that you have. You're actually, you have semi-decent resources here. I mean, you're at 75, so you can definitely afford stuff. But early on, a lot of times it makes sense to go like Jag Mauser because they're cheaper. They're kind of like the cheaper unit combo. And you always need like a front line that'll be in front, and then you need a back line, right? So you would have Jags, and then you would have Mausers. Starlights kind of fill a similar role, but Starlights are generally better at killing bigger units, and you haven't seen bigger units, right? You don't know if you are fighting something that you would need Starlights for. Against T1, I'd argue that Mausers are probably better, right? Because Starlights do 2,500 damage. I mean, it's dropped at range, but you don't need that level of burst for a lot of stuff. A lot of times it makes more sense to just drop a ton of Mausers and push with it, right? One Starlight is 1,200. Mausers are 270. You could have a ton of Mausers and just be super aggressive with it. But this is great. You're aggressive now. Your Mausers are starting to chip. Perfect. You need a scout spam. I would have eaten this a while ago, and you want to go bots. A bot lab is always better for spam because one, ticks are the cheapest. If they counter ticks, you can go pawns, which are a little bit more expensive, but they work. And you also need res bots, and it's an easy way to get AA if you need it. The other thing that you can do in a situation like this where there's a jammer and there's a jammer and the jammer is dancing on the map is just build a gremlin. If you build one gremlin, it comes down here and it's stealth, and the jammer is useless because you have perfect vision, and then you can just see what's here and you can attack. All right, this is really concerning. You have no front line. What is this unit mix, right? None of these units can really tank. Blitzer raiders, whistlers chip. These are arty, these are arty. If something big runs at you, like if an army of bulls runs at you, it's really scary. So when you're thinking about your unit mix in jags, mix in bulls. Your eco is strong enough that you could probably mix in, you know, you could go like 1-to-1 bull starlight or something similar. Okay. So first nuke is fired. And well, your eco player should have built anti that covers all of you, but this guy is building anti here. The problem is that first nuke fires, and if you look, you see there's only one anti being built, and it's right here. It's going to cover your main base. It's not going to cover the front. Really concerning is that if someone goes nuke, they generally are going to try to nuke backline positions first. So maybe they fire one here, maybe they fire another backline. But a lot of times backline players, especially on glitters, because these bases are so close together, someone will have anti. So they're either going to eat their nuclear silo, or they're going to go, well, these are probably protected. Let me nuke the front. Because if he nukes here, right, and he kills, like if you were to nuke here, it'd probably kill that. That's 7,000 metal. That's basically the cost of a nuke, right? Of like the silo. It's, well, nuke silo is 8K, 9K, but still. Right, he'll start nuking here. So even if your base is protected, you want to start thinking about getting an anti, like maybe right here, that'll cover all of your frontal bases. Because if he fires and hits an anti here, and then he goes, well, I can't hit the backline anymore, he's going to start nuking all of you on front. And that is not something that you want. Okay, so here, this is what I was talking about. You don't have any meat in front of this. So all these tanks can just run up and just shred your army. And you're against pork, which is nice, but especially if you were in the open, Mausers and Starlights can't fire behind themselves. So if those tanks ran behind the Starlights or ran behind the Mausers, they'll just kill them. All right, there's so much metal here, you need to reclaim this. Okay, so you do have a scout spam. Wonderful. Okay, Afu, little ambitious maybe, but that's fine. I would not, like I talked about before, I would do the bot lab spam, but I do love the fact that you have spam provision. I think that's awesome. You're getting chipped at by an agitator here. Hilariously enough, that agitator's in a horrible position. You could literally just cloak your comm, run here and degun it, and it'd just be dead. Alternatively, I mean, you don't know what's there, so you could ask your air player just for one fighter to scout it. You can also run your comm to here and just build an LLT there. I don't actually know, there might be LLTs there. No, so there's nothing there. So you can literally just walk your comm right here and degun and just completely remove that for future reference.
Aircraft spotted.
All right. Where is the next nuke? Who has a nuke? This guy? Okay, so he's firing. Does he nuke front? Okay, so he's going to try to nuke back. Oops. You still have a really bad unit mix, man. You need meat in front of this. Best case, I would be building LLTs here. Yeah, okay, so that hits anti. That should trigger like every warning symbol in your head of like, okay, he already nuked here, there's nothing value. He tried to nuke back and hit an anti. It probably means he's either going to reclaim it and scale, or he's going to nuke front. And if he nukes front, none of you have anti. Always reclaim everything that's on the ground, which you're doing here. And look, you have all these mexes you could take. A great thing to do also, I think you have a T1 con up here anyway. If you don't think, like there was an agitator here, well, the tremor's killing it, but if you don't think you can hold these mexes, just build twilights. People almost never check for twilights. So you can build the stealth ones and you still get, you know, the 3.2 metal, the 1.8 metal, but it's cloaked. And I've held front mexes with twilights for like 5 minutes because no one realizes that they're there, right? So you could take all these with twilights and you'd still have a much stronger metal income. and then it wouldn't be as big of an issue. All right, and then your metal would be stronger. Okay. This is like incredibly dangerous. And sometimes when you're panic building, you do it, and I get it. You never want to put converters next to fusions and advanced fusions. You always want to try to put converters on the other side of your nano wall, because converters, when they explode, do a ton of damage. So if one of these converters dies, all of these converters die, and all of their death explosions will probably trigger both of these fusions, and these fusions will trigger your advanced fusion, and your advanced fusion will trigger a bunch of your allies' buildings. And especially on a map like Glitters, as the game progresses, this fusion will probably be in range of other fusions. And it's one of those things where you've probably seen it in your games before, where like one fusion pops and every single person who's over here dies because everyone built too close together and they nestled their converters with their fusions. So don't do that. It's the same concept as this that I explained before, but you want to spread it out. So just put converters on one side, put fusions on the other. That way, if your converters do die, maybe your converters die, your nanos probably die, but your nanos won't chain to your energy buildings. And that's the big thing, because if you have E buildings, you can always rebuild converters. It's much easier to do that, but you don't want it all to pop at once. Also, because you have these, you want to get rid of your advanced solars. Like I said before, energy generating buildings that are like the next tier up are always more efficient. So if you look at these, right, it's 2200 metal for 450 energy. And if you look at a fusion, right, a fusion is 1000 energy for 4300. So if you were to eat all these and make a fusion, it'd be more efficient. But advanced fusions are even more efficient, right? Because this is 4300 for 1000, and advanced fusion is 97 for 3000. So I would just eat these and then turn those into advanced fusions. Other things, once the game goes on a little bit, especially just like looking at your air player, you don't have any fighters, right? I mean, this guy is, I'm not 100% sure what this guy's doing, but there's like no fighter wall. What you should do instead, or what I would do in this situation, is put down flak, even just make flak trucks and have like 4 or 5 flak trucks here. I would also make anti-intrusion. I don't see any on the map right now, which is terrifying. Yeah, so you guys need anti-intrusion. Once you get to about 20 minutes, or my like mental check is my first APHIS. Once I have my first APHIS, it's like, all right, do I have anti-nuke? Do I have anti-stealth? Do I have anti-air? You just want to have that when you're first APHIS, or like sometimes even when you're first fusion, because sometimes you can't depend on teammates and you just want to be self-sufficient. Also, oh, I missed that nuke, sorry. That's why you want Frontline. As soon as this was nuked here and you saw that one that protects your base, I would have built a Frontline. Yeah, I would have built a Frontline nuke right here, or a Frontline anti-nuke right here, because you need to protect against these. The guy has a nuke, you know it's coming, so you should have been able to prepare, because he fired one here. If you had dropped a Frontline anti there with your con that was upgrading mexes, you would have stopped all of these and all of these from dying. And you would have just even more protection in general. Okay. Something that's really weird to me in this game is you took all this ground, but then you didn't push it, right? And this is something you were doing earlier, is your units are just kind of like chilling here. But this is a lot of metal in units, right? This is, well, some of these aren't yours, but this is just a ton of metal in units. And you either need to be using them, because that metal otherwise should just be invested in AFUs. You need to be using them, or you need to just eat them, right? Like your commander, these Janus and these Blitz haven't moved in maybe 10 minutes. Just eat them with the nano, right? Or use them as meat in front of this push so that you can do stuff. Okay. Next thing that's a little strange, you should really be pushing this. Like, you had scouts coming in and you saw that there wasn't that much here. You probably, well, you need meat in front of this, but if you had meat in front of this, I think you probably could have killed this lane. Your ally dies, so you move over here. Okay, so your units are active, which I like, but keep in mind that This guy, like, you haven't scouted this, but this guy has almost nothing. I mean, this guy basically has nothing. And if you had any sort of raiding units, like if you had a bunch of Jags right here, a bunch of Jags literally just go like this and they kill everything here, right? The Jags down this side would totally wreck. Just because you are, just because you are here, don't think that your lane is only here, right? Like, you do a good job coming over here, but winning front a lot of times isn't about like winning your lane and being like, oh, I beat this guy. Good players, when they're like really good front players, they'll pork here and then they'll attack here because there's a weak spot, or they'll attack here because they're a weak spot. This isn't a weak spot, right? You can see here, this is actually relatively well fortified. You don't need to fight this. There's like no reason for you to rush at this, right? Instead, this guy's already been broken. If you run through here, you can kill potentially 2 players. Okay, I harped on the frontline anti a lot, but that's the reason there, right? It probably just killed, I don't know, I'd say close to 10,000 metal in units. And because he saw that die, now he's gonna push. Your pork is generally strong enough, so that's good. Frontline Persecutor is always a good idea. Gauntlets are useless later on. Just eat it and put that metal into another Persecutor. There's no reason for you to keep this alive. It's a complete waste of time, right? It doesn't have the range. It doesn't have the health of a Persecutor. There's no reason for that to be there. Just eat it and then turn it into Persecutors. Okay, I like the jammers. Pop-ups are never bad. I think a couple pit bulls if you do want to fort this, but the thing is, it's awesome that you want to have a frontline fortified position. Like, this is really cool. But what are you defending against? You've seen like some T1 come up here, but nothing's attacked you. So you're investing all this metal into defenses, right? Like, that's 8k metal into defenses. That's like basically 9 bulls. Well, 8.5, right? 9 bulls would probably kill, what's here? 9 bulls would do a lot of damage to this. Or that's a bunch of Jags that could have run down here and just killed that. And if you had a gremlin down here that scouted, right, you could just bring a gremlin down and you could see this. Gremlins are the stealth tanks. Then you'd be able to do it. If you are worried about like a position like this, you can also just make ambassadors and you could run them up, fire at the blob, and then run them away. There's so many T1 tanks in this game. It's a little crazy. Okay. So again, I already kind of harped on that. You're at 200 metal a second. And when you get to this point, you can easily go T3, right? Yep. So this is the 4th frontline anti, or front, yeah, because there was one here, another one here, and another one here. You're just now building your anti. You need to build it way sooner. The other thing you can do is drop a bot lab, a bot T2 lab, and you can make these, which are umbrellas. See this guy right here? It's mobile anti, and you could make those and bring them up. So here, look, red has tigers, which don't have anti-air. Jags have anti-air, so he could have killed that. But look, even T1 tanks can come in here, and they should be able to do a ton of damage. Like, if he hits any converters, the bases that are here should just die, right? And you have an army that, again, is just sitting here, and there's basically nothing here. This guy brought his army over. You should be here and pushing. Another thing that's like really, really great to do is, I think you even have shredders. Yeah. The guy's air wall is right here. Just move your shredders down and you'll just kill all of his fighters, because a lot of times they won't notice. So if you just put your shredders here and they're in range, like, oh, all the patrolling fighters, and then you just pick them off one by one, and you can get like 50 kills before they notice. Oh, cool. All right, so yeah, you're moving your shredders up now, which is great. You still have no front. If you had bulls in front of this, you could just shove straight down. And these guys are on T3 now. So 1 AFU you can Mara. Like, once you're at 3 AFU, you can definitely go like Vanguard. Okay, you can't Titan. Wow. All right, let me rephrase this. You're building 3 things at once. You're building even more than that. So you're going to M-stall. Titans are amazing units, but especially at this point, it would probably make way more sense to actually build vanguards, because you could put vanguards here, or like maybe even here, and they'd be able to suppress this entire area, right? If you have vanguards sitting here, they can shoot anything that comes there, and they can kill this to make sure that your ally can just run straight through. And because you've seen here, and most of it's like T1, T2, Razorbacks are the undisputed king of killing T1 and T2 for their metal cost. Thors are good as well, but Razors are just amazing for it. So I feel like this Titan, if this Titan was instead of that Titan, but it was like 2 Vanguards and 2 Razors, you'd be able to get a lot more out of it. One counter argument to that though is that there is T3 on the field, and Titans are awesome at killing T3 because you can kite. But again, you're just kind of chilling. I know you're trying to hold this guy's lane, but why fight here? So hold on. You've even seen this, right? There's pulsars here, and there's no defenses here. So you're over here and you're helping this guy fight, but you're pushing into a Thor and what's going to be 3 pulsars versus 2 HLTs, right? So you're going to fight 10,000 plus metal versus 800 metal. And you could literally just run down here. You don't need to fight into pork. You don't need to fight into big units, right? That doesn't make any sense. Just go here. Go here. Your vanguards could also be like up on this hill, right? And be shelling. Okay, again, I said it before, but I just want to reiterate. You basically never want to nestle these, especially like this, because now all of these are so close. Like, you run the risk of like chaining his converters, right? And then everyone's bases will die. You guys also, I don't see any stealth detection. There might be some somewhere, but you really, really need stealth detection, and you need anti-air. Okay, you're pushing into a fortified position, and you also don't have spam. So I said before, you always want to get rid of this lab because you want a bot lab instead. So if you had, say, 3 bot labs right here, you could be spamming ticks for vision all the way down here, right? Like 1, 2, 3. And it's even more important to have ticks for vision, because if you have big T3 like Titans out, you don't want them to get degunned. So you need small things in front of them so that they can absorb the shots and they can see commanders. Because if you don't have stuff in front of them, a commander can just walk up and degun. The other reason why you desperately want a bot lab is all this metal. You can get res bots. Like, hold on, where's your commander? Let's see what this is. Even if you didn't want to res these, there's 3k metal. Here's 5k metal. You probably couldn't get that. There's 10k metal here. You might be able to just eat some of these cargs or res these cargs. Well, maybe not, because they're fighting that. Okay, so I just want to reiterate, you see pork here. You see all this pork. You see 3 pulsars, and you ran your Titan. Just go here. Go like that. These can probably hit, yeah, so these can hit halfway there, but if your Titan just went like that, you can shred all of this. Look, your allies are basically killing this. Like, you could have ended this game a while ago if you had just run in and killed this. Because if you come down here and kill this base, suddenly instead of 8v8, right, it's 6v8. And instead of only having to protect the front here, suddenly the enemy team has to protect the front here, right? So it like doubles the amount of space that they need to defend against. All right. I don't hate this as long as your plan is to try to shoot eco. It's kind of a cute idea if you're going to try to snipe some eco, but you would need a gremlin or scouts to see what's here. Okay. Can you break this? You might be able to break this, but you need to, you're not killing the pulsars. The pulsars are the main threat. So if you do want to do this next time when you're pushing up, pulsars are the scariest thing for T3. So that's what you want to focus, and that's what you want to try to kill. Speed this up a little bit. It looks like you kind of stop scaling. I would keep scaling, but that's me. Another thing is, at this point in the game, I mean, you guys can probably win off of T3 alone, but once you're at like 30 minutes or something, if you look at your eco player and he's got, for example, 9 AFUs, 9 AFUs is the go time for a LOL cannon. And you already have a defensible forward position, right? So if he were to build even a rag, which has less range, right? But if he were to rag right here, even a little bit farther ahead, right here, look at that range. You could kill their entire team if you just built a rag here and there's no threat to it. Okay. Another kind of good rule of thumb, granted it's glitter, so you guys have a lot of overlapping nukes, is for every 15 minutes, you should have 1 anti-nuke. Just so that you can't get overwhelmed. And in case you get bombed, you don't lose multiple ones. So, like, if you have 1 anti in your base here, you should maybe have another one and another one, just so that you can't get overwhelmed. But it works well because in glitters, your bases are all so close together that your anti overlaps. Okay, what is this shooting at? Okay, you could have found what was here with a gremlin, but I don't hate this. I think what you're shooting at, it would probably make more sense to try to shoot at the mexes because you at least know something is there, or to try to shoot a little bit farther back because generally people aren't going to build eco here. They'd build it sort of farther back so it's safer. But it's kind of a cool play. Normally when you do this though, you build 2 of them and you put them on hold fire until you're ready and you know what you're firing at. Because if you only build 1, they can just rush build a shield right here and then they just protect everything and your basilisks are useless. Your LPRCs just don't do anything. All right, dude, I think I've said it a few times, but these, you broke this position, right? You fought in and you did all this stuff and then you just backed up. If you want to fight to take this, fight to take this, but any fight you take, you want to get the reclaim for, right? I mean, there's 2 titans on the ground here, and there's cargs over here. If you had res bots, you could have resed these or eaten them and turned them into something else. So I would say it makes way more sense for you to have 3 bot labs spamming ticks down here and you can send your titans. All right, cool, here we go, perfect. We've waited, it's 35 minutes. Here's your push down. Here we go. Here are the vanguards. Look at this. 2 vanguards on the hill. These guys don't even have vision and the vanguards are just shooting everything that's over here. But all right, super dangerous, man. We need spam with this. You want a lot of ticks or a lot of pawns or something else with it because there's a commander somewhere and that commander can just come up here and degun, maybe not all 3, but it can probably degun a couple of them. And if you have ticks, they absorb shots from the starlights and they can get all up in the starlights and kill them. If you have a push like this, I think you even have shredders, right? Yeah, try to have. So this is another reason why it's great to have a bot lab, because on a T1 bot lab, you can do a mix where it's like, hold on, who is the T1 bot lab? You can do a mix where you go like pawn, tick, pawn, res, pawn, tick, crossbow or something. And then you have a mix coming out where like you get res bots to repair and eat all the metal on the map. And you have light anti-air that you can just kind of like guard your T3 with. And you have the ticks for fast vision and you have the pawns for everything else, right? So that's why bot labs are just generally superior. Rovers are faster than ticks, but I would say in general ticks, like a bot lab is just way superior because of everything else it gives access to. All right, so this is awesome. You're finally pushing in, right? You could have done that a while ago instead of throwing away titans at that, but you're still doing good here. Always try to target converters because they'll chain. If you kill these converters, it all dies. Perfect. Oh, okay, so here we go, right? You don't have any spam. He's gonna come up and boom, your titans are gone. That is why spam is super important, because it helps avoid that. Also, 2 dead titans, and you have a titan here. If you bring these titans up and you have your res bots, you can either eat these. You'd probably want to eat all of this because it's a little scary to try to res it here, but if they're not pressuring, you could also res these. So you really want res bots. So this is why you want like at least 1 nuke per 15 minutes, so that if they do mass nuke, they can't overwhelm. Also, just as part of your pork, so I talked about eating things that you're not going to use, but pulsars are never bad to build, right? Like 1 pulsar here controls so much space that a lot of times it's worth it just to drop like 1 or 2 pulsars. But again, you've got all these units and they're just chilling, and there's so much metal here. Even if you didn't want to res it, that might be a little bit too big. 48,000 metal just sitting on the ground. No one's picking it up. No one's doing anything. That is reclaim will win games, guaranteed. So will resing, right? Those are free titans. Those are free bulls. Those are free razorbacks, and you could use all of those. And like this guy did what I had talked about before. We just have vanguards on the cliffs. They're so oppressive, right? And he could even move them here and start shooting at these, or go like this and start shooting at this, right? He could come all the way up here and shoot at that. Okay. I mean, you guys have to win this game, right? Regardless of everything else. So something else I just mentioned is that their air player and your air player have no idea what's going on in terms of standard airplay, right? They're kind of doing weird things, and you've killed this fighter wall. You could probably build a very small amount of T1 bombers and just end this game. You've even run down here and you see there's like just a couple fighters. If you run down here with T1 or T2 bombers and just bomb these AFUs, everything pops more or less. Well, not everything, but you could bomb these and kill like all of that. You could try to bomb some other stuff, right? Instead of trying to think about like, oh, like you have this weird concept where you're trying to fight like this, and it's like you're trying to like win the whole front, but it doesn't make sense to win the whole front. It makes way more sense to kill the back line, right? Because units on the front can always be replaced, but eco on back is much more difficult to replace. And you can already see like these guys have gotten in here and done this stuff, right? There's nothing in front of you. Why try to fight into an army here when there's unprotected eco that you saw right there? Yeah, see here, this guy is eating. This is what you need to be doing right here. Lots and lots of res bots. Also, for me, once I have like 2 to 3 AFUs, I always put down a shield, because you never know when someone's gonna try to snipe you, like with basilisks. And you have decent vision here. You could be shooting at these. What are these shooting at? Oh yeah, maybe you are. Oh no. So you have these on fire at will. It's kind of pointless, because a lot of times they'll shoot at mobile things. Try to target eco, like back here. Do you have... Yeah, I mean, you see that there's AFUs here, right? If you just go like that and click, maybe like that actually, and click, you could probably pop this whole stack. But instead, these are like firing at marauders, which are really quick. So this is a situation where a pulsar would be great to kind of snipe these, but this is still doing awesome. HLT gauntlet should have been eaten a while ago. We talked about that, and you definitely want more spam. So they got in and killed that. And here, let's just speed this up. I mean, this game is more or less over. But I mean, all things considered, you did a good job holding the front. But there's a few things that I think you definitely want to focus on for your next games. So one thing in terms of here, let's pause and let's think about your base. First, think about layout, right? You don't want to put converters next to other buildings. You only want converters next to nanos, or if possible on the side. I think you built A solars a little bit too soon. I probably would just spam wind, and then you can just go wind straight into fusion. But I mean, that might depend on the game. In terms of buildings, once you have a T2 vehicle lab, you don't need a T1 vehicle lab. Just get rid of it. If you want to build nanos, you can make consoles. If you want mobile build power, you can also make consoles. If you want scouts, make a bot lab. And along that line, I would have put like 3 bot labs here, or maybe some bot labs over here, because bot labs are much better for spam. And you can do that unit mix that we talked about, where you do a combination of like pawn, tick, AA bot, and res bot. You left a lot of metal on the field, right? These are all still here. Like for this big push here, you've got these 3 titans, but if you had res bots, you would have had 1, 2, you would have had 2 titans and a Thor, more Karganos, more titan, you know, another titan, could have had starlights. And if you didn't res that, at least you'd have the metal. So always think about getting reclaim. The other thing, so that's sort of like unit mix in this. When we talk about Frontline and some other game specific stuff, this dude nuked at like 13 minutes and you didn't build a front anti until like 25. As soon as someone nukes, you need to think, okay, not only can they nuke the backline, they can nuke the front. And this player should have had anti to cover all of you here, but he had anti, so it worked out. But you had the resources and you had a T2 builder who was upgrading mexes. He could have dropped an anti like right here, and this guy wouldn't have lost his army. This guy wouldn't have lost his army. Your army wouldn't have gotten nuked there, and your army wouldn't have gotten nuked there. There were 4 frontline nukes that you could have prevented by dropping an anti there. Alternatively, if you didn't want to do that, well, you probably didn't have the time there, but you could drop a T2 bot lab and then get umbrellas and move those up, which can sometimes be a better plan, but it just kind of varies. For your unit mix up front, you had a lot of buildings that just sat here for a while, right? This HLT, 7 kills, 450. You could have eaten this a long time ago and just turned it into a pit bull. Pit bull would have been awesome. Gauntlet, you can eat it, turn it into a pit bull, or use it into something else. When you do basilisks, generally make 2 of them and put them on hold fire and don't have them fire at will, right? You saw the AFUs here and they weren't shielded. If you had just put them on hold fire and then just A attacked here, you probably could have popped this guy's entire base right here. You could have killed all of that and it would have been awesome. Terms of unit control, I gave like some really specific kind of ideas for like how to use whistlers, right? Like you always want to be moving, especially versus arty. But more importantly, whistlers are chip units. So you need to be attacking constantly. And I think that's just true in the front line in general, right? There are like multiple 5 to 10 minute segments where there's basically nothing here and you could have broken through, or because there was nothing there or there was very little there, you could have like snuck through here and then helped kill this base. So just because you're a frontliner and this is the front, you're not responsible for the whole front. Like, yes, sometimes you need to help your ally out, but a lot of what was here, there was like 20,000 metal or 15,000 metal in defenses. You have no obligation to try to break a position here. That's fine. Just go around it. Right? You don't need to like win the whole front. All you need to do is get from here to the back line and kill their economy. Because if you kill their economy and back, you just win, right? That's all you have to do. So instead of trying to do that, you want to come here. Your unit mix, which I also talked about, I would say had some problems. Specifically, your T2 lab had no meat in it. So even though your artillery killed a bunch of units and stuff, you couldn't actually be aggressive because Mausers aren't raiding units and Starlights aren't raiding units, right? If you had bulls, or even just like if you had 10 Jags at multiple points in this game, your Jags could have run through here, killed this guy's base, probably killed this base, maybe swerved over, right? Jags are incredible raiding units. And there are times where like green brought a bunch of T1 tanks. If you have a line of your Mausers and Starlights, and then you have bulls and Jags in front, you would have lost like very few units in comparison. On top of that, if you had res bots, you could have resed basically everything you lost, and you could have eaten the stouts. We also talked about these mexes are just unclaimed for like the vast majority of the game. On contested mexes like this, just put down Twilights. People almost never check for them. They take a little bit longer to pay off, but you know, if you were to put a Twilight here, no one ran through here like the entire game. So yeah, maybe they would have seen it and killed it with artillery if it was a normal one. But if you put a Twilight, I guarantee it would have lasted the 100 seconds to pay for itself or more, right? I would also say you over porked this with persecutors. Instead of 5 persecutors, I would do maybe like 3 persecutors or even like 2 persecutors and then 2 pulsars, something like that. Pulsars are just a much better pork thing as the game goes later, because they can actually like hurt T3, and then you want to spread out. The spread on this is decent. You could also do a frontline shield here, which could have been useful. And then other things, remember there is the air wall here. So whenever you have a forward position like this, you built a screamer, which helped, but you can just move a shredder right here and kill his air wall. And if you kill someone's air wall, just because you're a frontliner, like if this is super porked and we could pretend this is porked and like you can't break here, if you just drop an air lab and fly like this, you can kill everything here. So always kind of try to think about like, how do you win the game? It's a common trap that even I fall into, where you're like, oh my God, he's losing, so let me go over here and try to help him, and he's losing, but this game would have ended like 20 minutes earlier if you had just had like 15 jags and you just go like this. He didn't have anything. This guy was teching. He basically didn't have any units until he had marauders, right? And so you would have just run through and killed everything. So yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, hit me up on the Discord, and I hope it was helpful.